the first ever anime to be based off of a Reddit moderator's life and what would happen if he was even uglier in another world. Jokes aside, okay, I'm trying to have a serious expression here. This is a new series that was announced earlier this morning called Ugly Mug Epic Fighter, and let's read the summary before I say anything else. His looks are negative 255, touching girls causes him pain, and sexual acts will literally tear him apart. Just what can our ex-salesman Shigeru get in the other world in exchange for such inconveniences? This is an epic tale of one very ugly man, but ridiculously strong man. I want to point something out, by the way, you can't unsee it. The same energy with free run, by the way. Like I don't know what it is, but like this cover here, like this cover, literally same energy. It has the same energy as okay, anyway, so that being said, when this was announced this morning, there was quite a few details that came out. One big detail that came out with it was that White Fox is going to be working on it. And if you don't know who White Fox is, well, they are the studio that does ReZero. They are the current studio that's been animating ReZero ever since Season 1, currently doing Season 3, and this was announced this morning. And this is Ice here, aka the biggest well-known leaker in the ReZero community, also one of the individuals a part of Witch's Cult Translation that translates, the web novel of ReZero. He made this statement today saying that, Studio White Fox will be producing this upcoming anime, and the pipeline in terms of when it's going to release, it is behind ReZero Season 3. So basically, going by what we currently know of, ReZero Season 3, and we know it's going to be covering Arc 5 and Arc 6, and, the last episode of ReZero Season 3, Core 1, is coming out this week, and we can't expect ReZero return until the beginning of next year. We know there's going to be 30-something episodes for ReZero Season 3 under the actual production title Season 3. It's going to be probably 3 to 4 cores long. And the thing is that with this announcement saying that it is after Season 3, that makes me believe that, judging by breaks in between the cores of ReZero Season 3, this anime is probably not going to come out until either late 2025 or even the beginning of 2026. This seems like a very early on announcement in my personal opinion, but I don't think necessarily this is going to have any effect on the quality of ReZero. For those that are concerned and worried that this series called, Ugly Mug Epic Fighter might deteriorate the production cycle of ReZero, I don't really think that's going to be the case, so just don't worry about that one. But anyways, let's get into actually the story. So I was morbidly curious if this was a good manga. I sat down, I read the first few chapters just to kind of get a good gist of how the anime would be and if it actually has a legitimately good premise. And I'm not gonna lie, I know I'm someone that loves Isekai Trash and Slot Reincarnated series, Transport to Another World series. I am fully well aware of that. I do like garbage, okay, dumpster diving for these type of stories. But I'm not gonna lie, the overall premise is so bizarre, and it's executed so well, that I'm not gonna lie, an anime is going to make this series go far. If White Fox legitimately, unironically goes freaking hard on this series for an anime, it legitimately might become one of the best anime of that season it's in. I'm not gonna lie. The first few chapters really got me by surprise. I did not expect to enjoy it like I did. Actively, I was, trying to seek more chapters out because of how much I was actually enjoying reading it. That says enough. So, what really is going on? Well, as you can see, it is a fantasy world, and I already implied that it's kind of like a Reddit moderator getting transported into another world. It's pretty accurate. That's honestly really accurate. But let's get into actually what's going on here. So basically, our main male character is a salaryman. He is someone that considers himself very ugly. He's not obese or anything like that. You can see his model and everything. He looks very different from the character cover, what he supposedly looks like. He is, an average person, but we don't get to see his face. But, what he implies is that he is not a very good-looking individual. He is very subpar below average. But we don't get to see his face, and I think that's the mystery of it, just to really know exactly how he was in comparison to what he is now when he gets reincarnated. But anyways, early on in his life, he basically got falsely accused of, as you can see on the screen, of certain misconduct or sexual acts against someone on the train. And this ruined his life. It straight up ruined his life. It gave him a record, but he comes to find out a few years later that the woman that got him, you know, a criminal record and all that, that falsely accused him, aka very similar to like Shield Hero, for instance, you know, she is a notorious liar. She got found out that she was a liar, that she was doing false allegations and stuff, and since she was technically, you know, a underage person, she didn't really have to have any real charges against her. She just got probation, and that was it. But the damage to the man's life was already done, and he still had a record permanently, which ruined him. It's a very sad circumstance. It's a very sad beginning, and it's just like, it makes what you thought was going to be a comedy into more or less a very sad story, that this man was already very self-conscious about how he looked, and then because he was basically, he believes he's ugly, you know, by society, he was instantly, you know, looked at as a villain because it seemed like he would do something like that to a woman. So it's really messed up, honestly. It's a very sad beginning, and it was not something I really expected going into the first chapter of the story, but basically, it ruins his life, and as years tick on by, he sees a post about, you know, apparently if you do a certain thing in front of your computer monitor at 2 a.m. and all that, you know, you could kind of have a whole new life, and that's where the main plot comes in, where he gets transported into another world, or in this case, into a game that becomes his reality, and he basically sacrifices all of his looks, and he goes into the negatives, like negative 255, to be able to get like 1 trillion stat points, and so he becomes ridiculously OP, at the cost of him basically looking really ugly. He looks like literally an ogre. He even talks about the fact that, like, you know, he's thankful that he doesn't look like a monster, but he's almost at that threshold. It's pretty funny, honestly, just seeing how self-conscious he is. But one thing in particular that is fascinating about the series is that it doesn't try to necessarily do anything, let's say, too different from the normal formula of an isekai, but it's executed so well that this gives good credibility to what I always talk about, is that you don't necessarily need to have a unique plot and a very, very unique premise to really tell a good story. It just depends on the writer, and it's very clear who writes this series. Ugly Mug Epic Fighter legitimately is a good writer, because they took one of the most stereotypical, like, themes and plot points of story beats and turned it into something that really did capture my attention and made me want to continue reading. So I will say that when this does get adapted, it has high potential to legitimately be amazing. Like, I know that sounds wild to think about, but it does have high potential to be an incredible freaking anime, if the anime is done well. I'm going to assume it is. I mean, White Fox has been very good with their reincarnated, transported type stories in the past. ReZero is a good example, so I'm not necessarily too concerned. I'm just, like, if it is given high level detail, depending on the season it comes out, it's going to probably be one of the best anime of the season. So yeah, will you be watching the Reddit mod becoming an isekai character? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, be safe, I love you guys, Chibi out.